Welcome to the Reynolds Writing Studio learning module about body paragraphs. Body paragraphs develop main points and ideas that relate to the central argument or thesis of an essay. At the end of this module, students will be able to identify the characteristics and parts of effective body paragraphs and identify the function of body paragraphs in academic essays. Body paragraph is a group of sentences that support one main idea. But what should a body paragraph do? Body paragraphs should each focus on developing one new point related to the essay's thesis, be able to stand on its own and have its own internal structure, and state its purpose or main point in a clear topic sentence. How do body paragraphs relate to the thesis? Well, the body paragraph should each develop one main point or idea that relates back to the thesis statement. In this visual, you can see the relationship between the main points and the thesis. What goes in a body paragraph? Well, according to the Purdue Online Writing Lab, body paragraphs should include the following parts: a topic sentence that tells the reader what you'll be discussing in the paragraph. A transition phrase is often included. Specific evidence and analysis that supports one of your claims and provides more detail to support your topic sentence. A brief concluding sentence that tells the reader how and why this information supports the paper's thesis. One question you may have is, how long should a body paragraph be? Well, there's no universal rule about the length of body paragraphs. Many college instructors will say that body paragraphs should usually be between 7 to 10 sentences long for most academic essays, or between 1/3 to 3/4 page long. That's typed, double-spaced. However, the length of body paragraphs depends on the genre or type of essay, with longer or shorter paragraphs being more common for certain genres of writing. What else goes in a body paragraph? This is one way to visualize a body paragraph. This is the body paragraph hamburger. In this case, you can see the topic sentence is what comes first, the top bun, where you're introducing the main point of the paragraph. Then you have supporting details in the middle, followed by a concluding sentence at the end to wrap everything up. So this is one way to think about the contents of a body paragraph. Here's an example body paragraph, and you can see that the topic sentence, supporting details, and concluding sentence have been highlighted, similarly to the body paragraph hamburger format. You're welcome, of course, to pause this video and spend more time examining visuals like this at any point. You can see the topic sentence includes a transition to introduce the main point, then supporting details and evidence to support that main point, and the concluding sentence to wrap it up. Here's another image of the same paragraph, and here we have underlined some important parts, including transition phrases. You can see that in addition to transition phrase in the topic sentence, then a for example transition to introduce some of the supporting details and evidence. And we also see the in-text citation underlined, where you would be citing any outside sources you use as you're supporting your points. So how should we add evidence in a body paragraph? Well, when adding specific evidence inside of body paragraphs, you can either use real-life examples or information and evidence from credible outside sources. But how should you add evidence from outside sources into your body paragraphs? Well, one way is the quote sandwich. This is another metaphor, another food metaphor for writing. When adding quotes or paraphrases from outside sources as evidence in your body paragraphs, you can use the quote sandwich method. Here's how it works. First, you would introduce your evidence. often with a signal phrase if you're using an outside source, such as according to Jones or Jones argues. Then you would add your quote or paraphrased information. This could include words and ideas from an outside source. And then finally, you would explain the quote or paraphrased ideas. And if you need to, also add an in-text citation. Again, you don't want to just drop a quote into your essay and keep going. You want to stop and explain how that quote or how that fact relates back to your main point. So here's some examples using the quote sandwich method. This example comes from a paragraph where the topic sentence is, another cause of homelessness is the lack of affordable housing. So this example is using the quote sandwich to introduce evidence supporting a main point about the lack of affordable housing leading to homelessness. You can look at this paragraph. Part of the problem is that many Americans simply don't earn enough to afford the cost of basic housing. For example, according to Witherspoon and Chang, so you can see here that introduction, the first part of the quote sandwich comes first, introducing the idea that you're about to add evidence for. Then you see the transition phrase, for example, and a signal phrase, according to Witherspoon and Chang. Next, we put our quote. In case it's a direct quote, this is also the same process, of course, you'd use if it was paraphrased facts or information too. In this case, the quote is, given current housing costs, the lowest earning 10% of Americans would need to spend about 55% of their income to pay for a one-bedroom rental. And after you add the quotes or facts, don't forget to explain the relevance of that quote or fact to your main point. And that's what happens at the end of the quote sandwich here. Statistics like this demonstrate how many Americans end up getting shut out of the housing market because most homes and apartments are out of their price range. So in this example, you can see the quote sandwich in action as a way to add evidence to support your main point inside of your body paragraphs. Sometimes students ask, how should body paragraphs in an essay be organized? Body paragraphs are where writers add support for their thesis and arguments point by point. Some common organizational patterns include, but are not limited to, sequence, description, cause and effect, compare and contrast, or problem solution. And of course, you should always ask your instructor about your particular assignment and any expectations for organizational patterns based on the type of essay you're writing. Now that you've watched this video, you can take the quiz linked under the video on the Writing Studio site to test your knowledge. Some instructors might offer extra credit if you receive 10 out of 10 on the quiz, and you can take the quiz as many times as you'd like. Ask your instructor for more information. And we hope to see you in the Writing Studio soon.